Modern day exercise science shows us that not all exercise is created equal. So, when it comes to weight management, some approaches may yield better results than others. This is why we will address the difference between aerobic, anaerobic, and HIIT exercise in this video to help you determine which one aligns best with your workout aims. But first, as always, please take note of our disclaimer. To begin, let's talk about aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is any activity that propels our body, usually lasting longer than 2 minutes with sustained exertion. So, activities like swimming, rowing, or jogging. Endurance activities, essentially. Although walking isn't exactly an activity you would think of when you hear the word endurance, it's also an aerobic activity. The intensity here is usually low to moderate. For an idea of how strenuous a low to moderate intensity is, it's basically any intensity where you'd be able to turn to a friend and have a conversation with while doing. In aerobic exercise, oxygen is used as a fuel to give your muscles the energy needed to keep up the effort. Now, you're probably thinking, but isn't oxygen used for every type of exercise and not just aerobic? And you'd be right to think that, as of course, it's used for breathing, which is clearly what we do a lot more of when we're working out. But what I mean is that in aerobic exercise, oxygen is employed to convert the three macronutrients, so carbs, fat, and protein, to ATP. ATP is the final product on the molecular level used as the primary energy source for cells from the breakdown of the macronutrients. Now let's talk about anaerobic exercise. So where aerobic exercise is low to moderate intensity exercise sustained over longer periods, anaerobic exercise is high intensity exercise lasting from several seconds to around 2 minutes. In contrast to aerobic exercise, which focuses on endurance, anaerobic exercise centers on building power, strength, and speed. As sprints develop speed and last shorter than 2 minutes, whether in running or swimming, they are an anaerobic activity. Other examples of anaerobic activities would be like skipping, heavyweight training, and burpees, for example. In this video, we will refer to these activities as traditional anaerobic exercise. You'll see why in a moment. Any form of anaerobic exercise helps build lean muscle mass or maintain it while dieting, which is beneficial as the more lean muscle mass we have, the more our metabolism burns calories when we're at rest. But of course, the rates of increased muscle mass will vary considerably between different types, as needless to say, the potential outcomes for this between heavyweight training and skipping would be poles apart. Compared to aerobic exercise, which utilizes oxygen to create energy, as we've mentioned, anaerobic exercise uses glycogen instead, which is a storage form of carbohydrates in muscles. Taking this into account, it is no surprise then why aerobic means with oxygen, while anaerobic means without oxygen. Oftentimes, since aerobic and anaerobic exercises use different ways to produce energy, this is why many people who train for a 10-mile jogging event by only sprinting or skipping rope frequently fail to complete the race. As oxygen isn't used to create the energy needed for these activities, relying on glycogen instead, the efficiency of using oxygen then isn't being trained in the lead up to the event, as it would be with jogging, leading to less desirable performance outcomes to say the least. Furthermore, I'm sure you've heard of high intensity interval training, or HIIT at some point. Well, HIIT is actually a form of anaerobic exercise. It incorporates intervals of someone performing a short burst of max intensity effort, followed by a brief low intensity effort, repeated until exhaustion. Low intensity relates to roughly about 50% of your max intensity. If you sprint at max intensity, a light jog would be 50% of this. A typical routine of HIIT involves a 2-to-1 ratio of work to recovery periods. So, for instance, 20 seconds of hard sprinting alternated with 10 seconds of light jogging repeated until failure. Now, you might come back and say, but wait, since a HIIT session usually well exceeds a 2-minute workout duration, shouldn't this mean that HIIT falls under an aerobic type of exercise, given what you said earlier? Well, keep in mind I said that aerobic exercise requires at least 2 minutes with sustained exertion. Since HIIT intervals repeatedly alternate from an effort perspective, the same intensity from one bout is never continuously sustained for longer than 2 minutes, hence classifying it as anaerobic exercise. Moreover, it's important to note that HIIT isn't just limited to running-related activities. You can also incorporate its principles towards activities such as swimming, push-ups, squats, cycling, anything really. On a side note, if you are interested in undertaking our evidence-based and results-backed personalized plate weight management program, please click the link in the top right-hand corner of the video or follow the link in the description. Now that we have discussed aerobic exercise, traditional anaerobic exercise, and HIIT, which is the most effective according to their literature when we want to get the most bang for our buck from our workouts, weight loss wise? The best study we could find which examined this was from 2015 by Falcon et al., where 9 men performed 4 separate exercise sessions for 30 minutes, consisting of a resistance training session, an endurance cycling session, an endurance running session, and a HIIT session. The study's results showed that the men burned, on average, 379 calories in the HIIT session, 284 calories in the treadmill session, 277 calories in the cycling session, and 265 in the resistance training session. So, in other words, while traditional anaerobic exercise and aerobic exercise achieved relatively similar caloric expenditure from one 30-minute exercise bout, HIIT was shown to burn approximately 30% more calories than both. Nonetheless, you'd be right in saying that we should also consider the extra calories burned from the following rise in metabolism to get the best idea of which is best for weight loss. But even then, a study by Wingfield et al. In 2015 demonstrated that HIIT burns more calories through metabolism post-workout than aerobic and traditional anaerobic exercise. In the study, 20 active women in their 20s completed 6 total exercise sessions of 60-minute duration over 6 weeks, including 2 HIIT sessions, 2 aerobic training sessions, and 2 resistance training sessions. The findings demonstrated that, on average, the women lost almost 200 calories more due to a heightened metabolism with HIIT than standard aerobic and resistance training. This is because HIIT is tougher on the body as it requires more energy to repair itself later. Therefore, the research indicates that HIIT burns the most calories from a 30-minute exercise bout itself and from the metabolic effect afterward. Further, another benefit between HIIT and weight management is that HIIT is a more enjoyable and time-efficient strategy than moderate intensity exercise, which suggests that it could be easier to maintain consistency over the long term with it, which is often the length of time required for successful weight management. This then brings us to how often HIIT should be done. We recommend that 2 times per week is the ideal amount of HIIT training, with 30 minutes per session. It would be counterproductive to do this every day, as your risk for overtraining improves significantly if your muscles don't have enough time to repair. Although, if you are just starting out, consider doing 15 minutes at first and building up to 30 minutes over the next few weeks, as it is physically and mentally demanding. To conclude, it is important to initially identify your exact fitness goals, as your training method will be dictated by them. But when it comes to weight loss in particular, and you're looking to burn as many calories in the shortest amount of time while retaining as much muscle as possible, we recommend HIIT training. That being said, since the prevalence of joint problems, particularly in the knee, lower back and hip regions, are higher in overweight populations who are looking to lose the weight in the first place, HIIT may enhance the likelihood of further injury over steady-state cardio or resistance training, given the level of intensity that comes with it. Therefore, HIIT isn't for everyone. Remember, 3 months of consistent light cardio will do a lot more for you when it comes to improving your weight status than 2 weeks of HIIT followed by 10 weeks of being sedentary due to an injury. Accordingly, use HIIT at your discretion. What are your thoughts on HIIT? Have you tried it out? We'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. So that has been our video. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.